Welcome to Malard at Large. My guest tonight is Karoline Edtstadler, the Austrian Minister of European Affairs. But before we start our Q&A session with her, right now, a TV profile by Ellen Corby.
In the Edtstadler family, politics runs in the blood. Karl Edtstadler, a lawyer and former head of the Salzburg State Parliament, passed the political bug to his daughter Karoline, born in 1981. After studying law, Karoline Edtstadler began her career as a judge at the Regional Court of Salzburg until 2011. Then, in 2014, she left her home region to become a political advisor in the Office of the Ministry of Justice. In 2016, Karoline Edtstadler climbed a further step up the ladder. She was transferred to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. 1 year later, thanks to the very successful parliamentary elections for her party, OVP, she entered the government at the end of 2017 as Secretary of State to the Minister of the Interior. She would hold this position for 1.5 years, in charge of such matters as the prevention and the fight against corruption, but also the preservation of the Mauthausen Memorial and the war graves. Following the European elections in 2019, Karoline Edtstadler became a member of parliament and was appointed vice chair of the Human Rights Committee. In 2020, her appointment as Minister for European Affairs plunged her back into Austrian national politics. It is particularly noteworthy that in November 2021, the Austrian government inaugurated a wall of names in Vienna, dedicated to the 64,000 Austrian Jewish victims of Nazism. Still in office, Karoline Edtstadler is becoming more and more significant in the international political arena. Karoline Edtstadler is Christian Malard's guest tonight.
Karoline Edtstadler, thanks for being with us. My first question, Mrs. Minister, should NATO, the Western camp, and European Union take seriously the threats of Third World War brandished by Russian President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov?
Well, to be honest, we have a very serious situation in Ukraine, and we have to do everything which is in our power to de-escalate the situation, to reduce the suffering for the civilians in Ukraine, and to stop this war. And if we put our forces together, if we are as united as we are at the moment in the European Union, but also broadly in the United Nations, I think we can achieve this goal.
Mrs. Minister, what could trigger a Third World War starting in Europe, according to you?
I don't want to even name this and to use what you are using in your question, because I think we have to do everything that we are stopping and further escalation of the situation. We have to put our forces together to install humanitarian corridors, to reach a ceasefire. And the goal is, of course, to reinstall peace all over Europe.
Must we be ready for a lasting war as long as Vladimir Putin wants to control the whole of Ukraine and Joe Biden, on his side, wants to help Ukraine militarily to weaken Vladimir Putin and Russia?
Well, nobody knows what is going on in the head of Putin. We don't have an idea what his plans really are, but we see what he's doing, and we see that he's ignoring and trampling on international humanitarian law. And this is something which we cannot tolerate. And that is why we are really sticking together in the European Union. And I also have the impression that he was not aware that Europe can be so united. And this is what he feared most. And of course, these 5 already concluded sanction packages are harming the Russian economy. They are also harming Europeans, but we have no other alternative than facing this brutal war with really concrete and clear sanctions.
Mrs. Minister, Vladimir Putin was expecting a blitzkrieg from his army, which showed its limits and weaknesses to reach his goals. Could he use chemical arms, according to you, to accelerate the annexation of Ukraine?
If you had asked me 2 months ago if I would expect Putin to completely unprovoked start a war in Russia, in Ukraine, I would have said it's unbelievable. So to be honest, I can't really answer this question because I have no idea what's going on in the head of Putin. But what I do know is that the European Union and also the United Nations are really united in fighting this war insofar as we have to do everything to de-escalate the situation. And that's what we are doing at the moment. We cannot tolerate that someone like Putin is trampling on international humanitarian law, that someone like Putin tries to change the borders of a sovereign country like the Ukraine. And it's in our responsibility to do everything what we have to stop him.
Vladimir Putin is obsessed with his mad dream of rebuilding the former Soviet empire. What can stop him?
You already mentioned that he was awaiting a blitzkrieg, that he awaited that it would be quicker, and I don't know what his plans are now, but I think he did not expect that we are so clear and united. Again, this is a completely unprovoked war in Ukraine, and we have to assist and stand in solidarity with our Ukrainian friends. That's what we're doing. That's what we can do. And we see also that NATO is very clear in this situation, and that we try to de-escalate the situation. Every single day where people, where civilians, where soldiers are dying, where mothers are losing their sons completely senseless.
Mrs. Minister, since the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky tried to have NATO and European Union involved in an open conflict with Vladimir Putin. Joe Biden and the allies rather decided to declare war to Russia by Ukrainian armed forces interposed. Is it the right solution?
I would like to try to put myself in the shoes of Zelensky, and what would I do in his shoes? I would ask other countries to assist. I would ask the European Union for aid. I would ask the United Nations for assistance. Also the United States of America, of course. And that's what the United States also doing. They assist Zelensky. They help him to solve the situation. And they have, the Ukrainians and Zelensky, they have all rights to defend their own country, to defend their citizens. And it's really something horrifying that in the 21st century we are seeing a war in Europe where we see people dying every day, mothers losing their sons. And that's why I really can understand him, why we are standing in clear solidarity with the Ukrainian citizens and with President Zelensky, and why we are so united. We have never been so united in the European Union before as we are at the moment. And that's really the good thing. If there is something good, the unity of the European Union is something where I think that might also stop Putin.
As a representative of Austria and European Union, which future do you see for NATO with a Joe Biden who is scared of war to the point of not fixing a red line to Putin?
Well, every state leader has to do the things he thinks that are best for the citizens. And the best thing in a situation as we are seeing ourselves now is to de-escalate, to try to assist, but to de-escalate. We can't afford any further escalation of the situation. It is needed to have calm decisions, and that's what we are seeing. Of course, we are also seeing that NATO is more and more attractive. If you're looking to Sweden and Finland, you see that they are slightly changing their minds regarding a membership of NATO. And I think that is also something which shows Putin that the Western world, with the European way of living, are sticking together, and that there is no chance for him all along to reach whatever plans are in his crazy mind.
I would like to add something you just mentioned, Finland and Sweden. Do you think it's a good idea to encourage Finland and Sweden to join NATO? Might not it be considered by Putin as another provocation?
Sorry to say, but who am I, who is Austria, also other states, to encourage a country to be part or to become membership of NATO? These are sovereign countries. Sovereign countries can not only decide on their own, they have to decide on their own. And it's also up to their citizens to decide.
Mrs. Minister, when NATO decides to strengthen its European eastern flank close to the frontiers with Ukraine and might facilitate Finland's and Sweden's accession to the organization, after having promised it to Ukraine in 2008, don't you think Vladimir Putin might consider it as a provocation?
I also want to be very clear on that. Putin obviously needs no provocation. He started a war in Ukraine without any provocation, completely unprovoked. And that's not how we are dealing with each other in the 21st century. We are a law-based international community, and that's how we dealt with each other in the past. He's breaking all the rules. And I don't think that it is the right mind to say that anything is provoking something he might do in the future. What we have to do now is to fight for our Western European way of life, that we have to fight for our European values. And that's what we are doing in assisting Ukrainians, because they are also fighting for us and for our values. And we were so proud that we had the European Council of Europe, that war is something which belongs to the school books of history. But now we are seeing that it is back in Europe. That's a sad thing, but we have to face the reality and we have to deal with it. And it's no sense in searching for possible provocations of Putin. He is doing what he is doing, and that's awful enough, but we have to deal with it. And that's what we are doing, and we are really committed in that.
So we are not going to give any opportunity for Putin to deal with it. Just we cannot accept what he did.
We cannot accept what he did. We can never accept what he did. And looking at the numbers, this is the bad side, that these are in the meantime high numbers of dead people, of civilians. So we can't talk of making any concessions. They are fighting for their country and for their sovereignty. Will they stop Putin? Will Putin stop in Ukraine if he reaches what he might want to reach? Again, we don't know what he's wanting to reach exactly, but I think he won't stop at the Ukraine border once he has it. So that's our thing we have to do. We have to stay in solidarity with Ukraine and assist Ukraine with all we have, dependent on the status of the country.
Must we still talk to Vladimir Putin when we know he doesn't want to listen to anybody?
I'm also very clear. I'm not a diplomat, but I am in politics in the meantime since nearly 5 years. And diplomacy and talking to each other is the way of solving problems in the 21st century, and not with the weapon in your arms. So, of course, we have to talk to Putin as long he is the president of Russia and as long he has not stopped this war. And even if he stops the war, I think we have the need to talk to him. We simply cannot afford of not talking to him.
Even for the reconstruction of Ukraine, do you think that it will be possible to talk to him?
Tell me an alternative. It's how we are dealing in the 21st century with each other. That's diplomacy. And yes, we have to talk. And I'm really glad to see that all countries, that including, for example, Turkey, are trying to involve in this round of talks, that they're really trying to seek ceasefire, that they're trying to install humanitarian aids. These are the first steps, and we hope that we can approach peace. I don't want to have a picture of Europe with a war for I don't know how many months or even years. And that's the only thing we can do, talk to him and assist Ukrainians also with weapons.
US President Joe Biden keeps saying NATO members and European Union stand united against Russia. But it's not the case. Concerning the gas and oil embargo, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Slovakia are against it. Don't you think that Vladimir Putin will be tempted to take advantage of Western divisions?
I have never said that it is easy to reach unity in the European Union, because the more sanction packages we are concluding upon, the more complicated is it, because the more harmful they are also for our citizens. But don't forget, we already concluded on 5 sanction packages. They have effects on our economy in Europe, but they also affect the Russian economy. They harm the Russian economy. And that's what they should do, that Putin is changing his mind. Regarding the oil embargo, we are under negotiations. We also have to put ourselves in the shoes of the other member states. There are countries who are more dependent than others. But what we are seeing now, and this is for the first time since I'm working in the European Union level, is that everyone tries to do so. Everyone tries to imagine what it means to the other countries. And there is no sense in making an embargo if some other countries are losing their economic power, because then we cannot really help and assist Ukrainians. And I think that's also understandable. For Putin, it is well shown with 5 sanction packages that we are united. And I think he can feel it quite well.
What do you expect, Mrs. Minister, from those 6 package sanctions?
As long as Putin does not stop the war, we have no other chance than discussing, debating about further sanctions, because we want to reach a change in his attitude. And so far, we are unfortunately not seeing that he changed his attitude. In the contrary, he is attacking also civilians, he's bombing kindergartens and so on and so forth. We get really bad messages every day. I'm a mother of a son too, and I don't want to imagine what it means that your own son is sent to fight for the sovereignty of your country, or even worse, is sent by Putin to fight to break the sovereignty of a country like Ukraine. I get really goosebumps all over, and I am getting really emotional if I'm talking about that. So let's face these facts and let's try to talk to Putin. Somewhere in his mind, there must be a rest of a human being.
I come back briefly to the gas embargo. Don't you think it will be the most difficult to realize among the European allies?
Yes, and I can tell you why. Because in Austria, we are unfortunately dependent on 18% on gas from Russia. That's a matter of fact. Is it nice that it is so? No, it is not. But it is a fact we have to deal with.
Neither Vladimir Putin nor Volodymyr Zelensky must lose face in the conflict. According to you, which concessions could be acceptable for both of them?
I cannot talk about concessions if we are talking about war in Ukraine, which was started by Putin completely unprovoked. Sorry to say, I would like to be very clear on that. There cannot be any concessions on the back of thousands of dead civilians, on thousands of dead soldiers. Ukraine has the right to fight for its sovereignty, and that's what we are also supporting in standing in clear solidarity with Ukraine.
But finally, I mean, what could be the solution? If we want to reach peace, I agree with you, making concessions to Putin, it's difficult to accept. But what would be the solution, finally?
Putin should stop this completely unprovoked and awful war.
But can you understand, Mrs. Minister, that this is a problem, as you said, and everybody think like the way you think? Putin is difficult to predict, but what can we do again?
I can't really answer that question because I can't look into the future. But I think if the European Union, if the United States, if the leaders of the world, the Pope, include also the Pope, make clear that this war has to be stopped by him because it was started by him unprovoked, then I think we have a chance.
Must Vladimir Putin be considered as a war criminal?
What we are seeing from him, I would say yes, but you know that I'm a lawyer, and in the end, it has to be decided by a court. But I would like to be very clear on that. I hope that he will find himself in front of a court.
Mrs. Minister, I think you met Putin in Vienna for the inauguration of a monument about Soviet World War II. What was your impression when you met him?
To be honest, I think it was in the year 2018. It was a very short meeting. We met, by the way, at the monument where we commemorate for the end of the Second World War and the Russian soldiers who left their lives in freeing Austria. And this was a completely other surrounding, let's put it like that. I don't had the chance to talk a lot with him, but in these days, his behavior was completely different from his behavior, what he's showing today. So I can't tell you more then I met him for a handshake, and that was it.
Do you fear the reaction of Putin concerning the security of Jewish population in Europe?
We all have to be concerned regarding the security of Jewish people, because especially during the pandemic, we saw an incidents against Jewish people in Austria, in Europe, and in the world. And I'm responsible also in the fight against anti-Semitism here in the Austrian government. And I don't think that you have to bring it directly in connection with this war. But in general, we always have the need to be concerned on the one hand, to set actions on the other hand, to stop incidences against Jewish people, and to show that we have a Jewish life, a prosperity here in Austria and in Europe, and we can be very proud on that. And that's what we are trying in Austria also. We commemorate on the one hand, and on the other hand, we show that this life is really there and a good life, and that this is also part of our culture, and we can be proud on this part of our culture.
Mrs. Minister, the world order issued from 1945 under US dominance is totally obsolete. How do you perceive what is shaping up with the rise of Sino-Russian alliance and certainly also the decline of the West?
You're right. The world changed a lot in the last decades of years. And we see also that in some councils, for example, the United Nations Security Council, we see a law-based order which is based on the situation back in 1945. And we have to adapt to the current situation. But to be very honest to you, it's not easy, because there were already attempts to change the order in the past 10, 20, 30 years. And it was not easy, because there are 5 powers and every power has a veto. So we see that this is not possible for solving, or that this is not helpful for solving problems. So I think we have to stay on track and try to consider how we can change the situation. And this is, against the war in Ukraine again, more than necessary, because you won't have United Nations Security Council decisions if you keep this order. So let's also fight for that we can reach a change.
My last question, Mrs. Minister. You are a representative of a great, respectable country, Austria. What would be the message you would be tempted to convey to Putin? Because we need to talk to him, to Europe and to the United States.
I would like to say, Putin, simply stop this senseless war. Stop the murdering of people. Stop this fight and stop that soldiers are dying, that mothers are losing their children. This is the awful thing in the world you can do to people. And I would try to appellate also on his rest of human being in his head.
Karoline Edtstadler, Mrs. Minister, I want to thank you very much for having shared your vision of international politics. Malard at large will be back soon.